Kia ora team, let's reconvene.
Sally's off. She's just going to be an apology. She'll let us know.
I did see that note from her. Thank you. Back there.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. So we're welcome back, everybody. We're going to go to item 3.1, Hauraki Rail Trail Charitable Trust Annual Report, full year 2024 to the end of June, 30th of June 2024. The report will be presented by Jess from Economic Development and Derek Thompson from Parks and Open Spaces Manager. Thank you for this. I'd like to also welcome Kamatua Wati Namani and Tēnā Koe Wati and Diane Drummond here. And we may call on you just to answer questions for clarification from councillors. But we'll leave it to Derek and to Jess to, and I'm guessing, Jess, you're presenting this. We'll open the floor to you. Thank you.
Kia ora, thank you. So we'll take the report as read, but we're here to present the annual audited reports for the Hauraki Rail Trail Charitable Trust. This is for the year ended June 2024. Feedback.
Just 2 seconds. I think Gary might be having some technical. That's all right. You're okay? Not the good kind. Okay. Yes, technical issues can get the best of all of us at some stages. Right. Okay, so Jess, sorry, back to you.
No trouble. So yes, this is the end of year reports and accounts for the trust to the year ended June 2024. We have reviewed the reports as staff and have Derek sitting next to me to answer any questions related to the more operational day-to-day parts. And of course, we have Diane and Wati in the room with us. So if councillors have any direct questions on these annual accounts or reports, please fire away. Yeah, basically, we're just asking that you receive the report and attachments. We'll just note that the trust has met the majority of their outcomes as they set out in their business plan. And we're, as staff, we're working within trust to ensure we keep up with that strong settler relationship and reporting ongoing.
Thanks, Jess. Derek, anything that you wanted to add to that? Thank you. Okay, so we'll take the report as read, as Jess says. Councillors, you any questions that you have either of Jess or Derek? And we've got Diane and Wati here as the chair of the trust who are able to answer any questions specifically. Peter, go ahead, please.
Thanks. I know it's in their charter or whatever it is, but it does. I was just wondering whether, in fact, these financials need to be audited every year and the costs associated with it, which is, it's not like the Destination Hauraki, not like the rail trail is a huge enterprise. I know they do receive public funds, and perhaps that's the reason for it, but I just, I'm sure if they could save $27,000 by not having audited accounts every year, that would be attractive.
I'll just comment on that in the way that I can and I understand. The rail trail is a council controlled organisation, but we exempt them every few years from the requirements that are more intensive for audit purposes under the Local Government Act. And so in terms of what that means practically, I probably can't speak to that. That's possibly something more for finance, and could possibly be something that the trust might be able to comment on further. Oh, yes, please.
Diane, we'll get your mic turned on because we've got people online that'll need to be connected to this. Hang on. Okay, where you go.
Thank you so much for the question. There is actually a technical reason why the Office of the Auditor General decides who our auditor is, and hence the $27,000 audit fee. And it's simply because within our trust deed, we have the clause that we shall have an audit. And because it sits within our trust deed, which we actually, some councillors may remember a few years ago when we last reviewed the trust deed, we looked at whether we removed that clause. Because it's left in, the choice of who does our audit is not our choice, and so we get appointed by the OAG at $27,000. The trust deed is due for review again under the Incorporated Societies Act with the legislative changes, and with those legislative changes, the requirement to have a trust audit is compulsory, so that can actually be removed from our trust deed in a future rendition with council permission and agreement, and then we can actually then go to a cost structure that's much more comparable to the size of our organisation. So it's a very fair question and one that we've questioned ourselves.
Excellent response. Thank you.
Thanks, Diane. Councillor Grant, you had a question?
Thanks very much. Just having a look through the finances, I have a couple of questions. The first one, quite a simple one, I think. Last time we had a number of questions that were not able to be answered even by our internal finance department. Have we progressed? Are they now comfortable with the financials that have been presented?
Yes, we reviewed a couple of audit queries and we were happy with the explanations.
Okay. So can I just go to the financials and in particular note 7 in regard to the government contracts? I'd just like to understand the variations that have occurred, particularly the support from the Ministry of Business Innovation, and whether that's an ongoing expectation. And I'm also interested in the amount that has been paid by Destination Hauraki Coromandel and whether that was just a one-off or is going to be a continuing payment as well.
Certainly, thank you. I'll answer the simple one first. Destination Hauraki Coromandel was a grant with regards to an event we were hoping to put together, and it very quickly became apparent that the costs were blowing out. We got a $30,000 grant. We returned the balance after we'd done some considerable work to realise that we didn't want to end up in any further deficit, so we had to pull the chain on that one. So that's not ongoing. That was a single one-off payment. With regards to the I take it you're talking about the Ministry of Business Innovation and Employment. God only help us if we keep having a Gabrielle every other year. So that is directly related to Gabrielle. There was $2,009,000 of contract, and that was against a background of only being told we only were able to claim 300,000 and we were successful in getting just over 2 million. So it is all once off. Thank you.
So just for clarity, that's on page 227, note number 7 against the financials. And it's a good question. Thank you, John. I had a note to myself to, because the numbers, it's up 1.124 million between 2023 and 2024. So that helps to clarify that. Thank you, Diane. Good question. Councillors, any other questions? Martin, go ahead.
So would you like to tell us very briefly about the your role within the NZCT?
Thank you. Yes, I successfully gained a role on the national board of the New Zealand Cycle Trail Network. I felt it was really important that the trails around New Zealand actually had a voice from a real practitioner point of view and not just a Wellington viewpoint that was sitting down there where things sat. And as a result of that, we've actually managed to bring through new funding to all trails of, for us, it's $88,000 per year to help towards our annual maintenance of the trails, which has allowed us to do additional works to actually improve bridge approaches and other audit issues that were going on the trail that allowed things like that to happen. It's also, we've been successful in continuing $45,000 worth of support towards some of our operational costs. But it's also having a really clear voice about understanding what's happening on the trail network itself and not just from a policy point of view.
Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. John.
Sorry, just a supplementary question. On the accounts, I have also remembered that there was an additional cost to the council that was unexpected in the last report, and that raised the question of the sort of no surprises policy, or the level that the council could be held accountable for in regard to it. It's probably more a question to Jess or finance. Has there been any work on that, or are we still sitting in a situation where those costs could flow through in the event of unexpected additional costs to the rail trail themselves?
In the trust deed, it does indicate that council has a requirement to support the trust for unexpected finances. I don't have the exact clause in front of me.
Yeah, I'm aware of that, but it's uncapped, and there was some discussion at the last one in regard to that.
I'd also add to that point then that there are quite a lot of details within the underwriting agreement, which is quite a long-term agreement underpinning the trust and is joint with the other settler councils. And that outlines like the reporting and planning requirements for reports to come to council, and for that to be part of that no surprises approach in terms of planning. And so there is, so we're acknowledging as staff that the years we've had in the last wee while with COVID and storms and things being up in the air, that having the relationship with the trail, not just from an operational perspective, but also from that governance perspective, bringing together the staff that can advise and can support the trail to report well and to communicate those expectations ongoing, as a collective effort between finance, economic development team, operations, and others who intersect with the trail. So we're essentially, making sure that the trail gets those invitations to council to present the plans for the future, and to make sure that on an ongoing basis, councillors have that opportunity to ask those questions, and so that we can, keep those reporting lines really clear, and that in future, those things can be aired much earlier. That's my understanding of how we're moving forward from that.
Thanks, Jess. I think what Councillor Grant was really getting to the nub of is, are there any more surprises? And you've outlined the process, but that's the guts of it, isn't it?
It's really the process that I'm more concerned about than the what might be occurring at the moment. I just want to be absolutely clear. 1000% support the rail trail. I think what you do is just magnificent stuff, and it's a great asset for this area. I just, on behalf of the council, and I'd really probably ask finance or even the chief executive around this issue, because effectively, if I understand this correctly at the moment, it means that a decision could be made to extend this to Timbuktu and back, and the council would have to step in and meet the costs of doing that. So I just want to know what the safety aspects of this are from a council perspective. I think if someone could explain that to me.
We can bring that back to council, I think. So we'll bring the trust deed back to council, possibly even in a workshop setting, and we can go through the funding agreement and what the boundaries of the funding agreement are.
Terrific. Can we just formally note that, please, that we need to do that?
Thank you, Councillor. And really, you're just interested in identifying the risk settings around, what our exposure might be in extreme circumstances. It's a fair question. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a mechanism for limiting the level of our exposure.
Yeah, spoken like a true insurance man. You keep us safe there, Councillor Grant. Thank you. Terry and Peter, do you have a question as well?
Yeah. Thanks for the report. I'm a little bit interested around the maintenance. I know you got some money to repair after the cyclones and that. How's maintenance on the trail and sort of spreading that cost across the councils? Could you give us a bit of an update?
Thank you. What we've now done is moved to, we've contracted Hauraki District Council to maintain the entire trail network. We've done, and that's from Matamata all the way through to Kaiawa in the north and out to Waihi. We've intentionally done it in that particular way to ensure we have consistency with new pieces of trail coming on board and to bed in systems and processes and actually check the costings against the estimates by having someone we know and trust and understand the requirements of the grade 1 network. So that has meant by bringing Matamata to Te Araha, or Te Araha to Matamata team, we call it, under our wing, that there's now been the funding ratio split that has changed the ratios, where it used to be 71% Hauraki, 18% TCDC, and I think it was 11% to MPDC. That funding ratio is now changed, where Hauraki District Council is now 56%. Matamata Piako is 38% from the top of my head, and TCDC is now 11%. So we certainly ensure that we have regular inspections and that we're working where we can to raise additional funds through our partner sources to ensure that we're doing the best we can at the lowest possible cost to ratepayers.
Thanks, Diane. Peter, did you have a question? Robin, please.
Just following on from John's point about, unexpected surprises. I know that Martin has raised this in the past with governance, but I would certainly welcome a regular reporting mechanism to come back. So we now receive minutes from the other external committees that Councillor Grant sits on, the Civil Defence Committee, and we've got a representative for the Hauraki Gulf Foreign Land Transport. And so I know that was a governance question that was asked sometime last year, but I would like it to be asked again if we can get some sort of regular reporting back, because I think that will potentially help us have a better relationship with the trust and support Martin in his role, but also enable us to have that no surprises.
Thanks, Robin. Peter, we've got a note of that. Thank you. Follow up.
In Waitangi weekend, my family and I, we did the trail from Thames to Waihi, and it's absolutely fantastic. It was good to be, it's been a few years since we've done, good to be reminded. A few years ago, there was talk about extending the trail into the centre of Thames, and I'm just wondering, is there any thinking that's happening with regards to that. And secondly is just the rough patch where the Kopu Marine project dug up the trail seems to still be in a rough state. Do we know anything about that?
Thank you. I can talk to part of this. I can't talk to all of it. The Kopu Marine Precinct, we are sitting currently on a balance of $56,000 towards those remediations to actually improve that little section there. It's about 800 metres long is the affected piece. There's just a couple of bodies of work that we're waiting on. Waikato Regional Council have advised us a year ago that they're looking at raising that stop bank. So there's no point us throwing money on it at the moment when it's going to be destroyed within a short period of time. So we're holding back on that body of work. We also understand that there might be some other contribution coming through from the Marine Precinct project itself, because the weight of that project shifted the stop banks and had some effect. So we're just waiting on the outcome of those things before we can actually make progress. But we are sitting on some money to actually enact that. The second part was probably more better answered by Derek, I think.
So it has been in previous LTP a project. So there was some study that has been undertaken in terms of moving the trailhead from its current location into the centre of Thames. From memory, it was quite some time ago, it proved to be problematic, and so it wasn't advanced any further. And there was some ambiguity about how it would potentially get from its current trailhead into the centre of Thames. Would it be along the coastal walkway, or would it be through the streets? So from that perspective, it hasn't gone any further, Peter. Sorry.
Thank you, Derek. Is that helpful, Peter? Thank you. Okay. Any further questions from councillors? All right. In that case, could I move in a second, please, to receive the reports? John Grant, Terry, all those in favour? Thank you. Thank you, Diane. Thank you, Wati. Thank you, Derek and Jess. Much appreciated. Cheers. Travel safe. We're going to go to item 3.3, Chief Executive Report, please.
So we'll just get Hayden to speak to the financials, and for the observer among you, you will see some red colour around water. So between Hayden and Mo, they can speak to our actions around that.
Sailing. Hayden, welcome back.
Yeah, in terms of the actuals, the majority of them, majority of our activities are actually tracking well. It's just the waters activity that is over at, well, materially over at present. Some of that's due to there was a contract variation done at the beginning of last year, which was brought to council in April, and which kind of missed the LTP bucket, but was agreed as part of that report to be due to the nature of the variation to be OPEX line funded over 5 years. So the majority of that, a lot of that variance is sort of been covered by that report. I guess we're working with Mo and his team to kind of just establish, as part of the March reforecast, exactly where we will end up with waters, to see, are we going to be on budget, or are we going to be over? So as part of that, we'll bring a report to council, but there's work going on in that space as we speak. The other area where we've got a favourable variance is sort of personnel costs. That's offset by sort of contractor costs, which are filling in some of the filling in those vacancies. So yeah, it is offset, and as we fill those vacancies, we'll reduce those contractors. So yeah, in terms of capital delivery, we're we're pretty much where we were last time I reported. We're still behind budget. However, we're assured, I'll probably pass to Mo, but we're assured that in the next, well, January in particular and onwards, that capital delivery is really going to sort of ramp up. So just have to watch this space. Treasury, as was reported to the Risk and Assurance Committee, is sort of on track, and debtors, we're working, the rates debtors seem to be on track, but the sundry debtors are an area of real focus for us in the coming months. If you can take any questions.
Thank you. I'll open it up for questions, please. Rebecca.
Thanks. I did have one here, and I think Hayden, you just alluded to it. Have we seen the kickoff of projects that we were anticipating in the start of the new year?
So we're talking about, is that the Matarangi, in particular, the roading projects in the Matarangi?
Well, just under capital expenditure, there's a comment here that we were expecting to see several significant projects kick off in January.
Yeah, so that's the roading projects and the Matarangi drinking water plant upgrade. I'll pass that to Mo.
Yeah, plus what I would also add is the new Whitianga RTS. So the tenders have closed for that. We have received a number of tender submissions that's being evaluated as we speak. So that project will get underway this year as well.
Oh, thank you.
Yep, sorry, one more project I would add to that list is the new Whitianga RTS. So tenders have closed for that project and they're being evaluated as we speak. So that will also get underway shortly. Yep.
Thank you, Mo. Rika, does that answer your questions? So thank you. Do we have Terry? Did you have a question?
I do actually, but I didn't ask for one, so thank you. The hearings for the wastewater plant at Matarangi, they were raised yesterday at the Regional Council Coastal Plan Reviews. Have you had any discussion around those? Or maybe that's a Mo question.
Yep, I'm happy to answer that question. We were advised yesterday that the hearing date, which was scheduled to be in March, is now postponed to the 3rd of July or 3rd of June. They have asked for additional information, which we will need to provide to the commissioners and the hearing committee. So I'm going to follow up on that. I got only advised of it yesterday. So I'm going to follow up with our team.
Did you have a comment?
I was just going to comment that there's quite a few changes coming through the RMA framework, which is potentially making things easier, and particularly around these big infrastructure projects. So a delay, while it might be annoying and it might create a little bit of cost, it's actually may not be a bad thing in terms of a better outcome.
Aileen, are you referring specifically to the wastewater standardisation process? Is that likely to apply to Matarangi?
I'm thinking about a package of stuff that's coming through the reforms, in particular some of the water quality provisions that are coming through, and particularly impacting the regional councils, which it will be what the measure is that they're measuring our application against.
So potentially a delay might help us in the long term, a bit early to say. Yeah, okay, thank you. I have a question, please, for Aileen. Page 263. I'm not sure which of your staff. The Momentum Waikato will be meeting community. Oh, sorry, we're still on the financials. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yep, we'll go back to Hayden, and I'll come to that in a second. Hayden, my apologies. Peter, you had a question on the financials?
I do, thank you. The recurring variations we see in the waste, in solid waste and the transfer stations, etc. At which point when do we expect to sort of kind of end up with a good handle on how those costs and how those revenues are going to become more predictable?
I suppose for more time, but we have since September 20, what was it? 24, the 23, sorry, the contract kicked off. So, a bit over a year now. I know, I'll probably pass this to Mo, but I know we're getting a lot more data from waste management. So with that data around collections and, revenue and whatnot. So with that data, I would think we would be able to, the more data we get, the better handle we'll have on those fluctuations, I would have thought. Is that right, Mo?
Yep, I'm happy to answer that question, councillors. We will have a better feel following the end of this financial year because we have still not had one full financial year of work because the first part of the contract was only 9 months and the first financial year ends on 30 June. But what I would also allude everyone to is the undergoing kind of behavioral change where there's a larger number of people using the RTS and lesser number of people using curbside because of the extended hours. So there is a transition that's going on at the moment. So we will have some better information early in the new financial year. Thank you.
Thanks, Mo. Peter, go ahead.
Yeah, so secondly, can I just say thanks for when we look at the rates age balance, the fact that we seem to be tracking kind of the way we were in the past. So that's thank you for giving those percentages on there. But in one of your opening comments, you mentioned about the fact that we have some unfilled vacancies, and I guess my question around that is whether those unfilled vacancies, how critical are they to the operation of what we're doing, the fact that we have those unfilled vacancies?
So unfilled vacancies probably across the organisation. We're actually getting some really good recruitments and some really good applicants, but probably the crucial areas in the projects team, and your councillors will recall I spoke to you before Christmas about going out to the market and trying to secure some roles there. We're still in that process of trying to secure some folk into those roles. So that's probably the key risk, I think. I think the rest are fairly much spread. And operations team, I think, is probably where our challenges are, because I think what we're seeing is they're probably under-resourced in the first instance, and with some vacancies, there's quite a bit of pressure on them, and there seems to be quite a lot of fires breaking out in the different communities, and particularly around the infrastructure area. So I'd say that's the most critical area that we're struggling with at the moment.
Thanks, Aileen. Any other questions for Hayden on the financials?
I guess the supplementary question to that is we're struggling with it at the moment. And are you optimistic that we're going to not struggle?
I think so. So we went to the market just before Christmas, and that's a pretty difficult time to recruit. And I think we're on the verge of making some recruitments. Just looking at Mo to nod or shake his head.
That's this week we are conducting 3 rounds of interviews for different roles for engineering services, climate change and development engineering. The caliber of candidates coming out are pretty good. That's what we've seen so far. So we should be able to fill some of those vacancies. And they are a necessary part, like what Aileen mentioned, to continue day-to-day operations, because it is a struggle without those staff.
Thanks, Mo.
And if I could just comment on the CapEx delivery, I know this was flagged before Christmas, and we've actually had Ian Morton come in and has been reviewing our performance across the capital delivery. And we are also still trying to implement the new system, and the IT team are assisting the project team to get that system implemented. So Ian will report at the next available opportunity, whether that's council. I was hoping it would be audit and risk, but it may, given how far out that is, it may need to be council, but he will report in due course on that.
Yeah, so a quick question to that, Aileen. Are you still planning for the 75% completion?
Didn't you make a resolution earlier today that set it at 75%?
Still happy with that?
I think it's inevitable we won't make the 75%. For a range of reasons, valid reasons. But at this stage, I'll wait for Ian to finish that review before we give you a prediction.
Thank you.
Thank you. Reka.
If I could just circle back to waste, I know the conversation's moved on, but I just wanted to understand, Mo, if you could make some comment around community litter. Is that the collection, is that the collection of the bins, or is that seeing more of an increase in things like fly tipping?
Community litter is mainly around the bins, like on the streets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I was just agreeing with Mo that, yeah, community litter is the bins on the street, not the, yeah.
Thanks for that clarification. That's good.
Okay, thank you. If that's all for finance, I'll invite Brian up to speak to the RFSs and our whizzy new diagrams and pictures.
Mr. Bryan, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, look, this is still it's an improvement on the previous reporting, but it's still a stopgap until we get more automated reporting. So we plan to bring the quarterly updates to you, just showing what's been opened, what's been closed. The next iteration of that would be providing you the percentages closed within the service level agreements. But as you can see, the fact that in that quarter, most over 80 to about 95% closed in that period, they're more than likely hitting the service level targets. But yeah, we still have a little bit to go with our automated reporting.
Councillors, any questions for Brian? None? Councillor Grant, does that, I know this is an area that you have particular interest in, seeing those revised reporting and numbers, which looks good.
It is.
Some music to your ears?
It's certainly good to see, and thank you for the work that's gone into this. I do have a few questions. I guess a broad one starting off with. What is the sort of main area of focus in regard to the information that you're seeing coming out of the RFS? What's your main area of focus now?
We've certainly seen general sentiment improved in terms of the solution we put in place with the automatic email. We've had a number of customers say that has really helped to understand when something's been closed. So that's been recorded through there. The second stage, I guess, is we haven't really looked at those service level agreements for a while, and so part of the automated reporting, we just want to make sure that those timeframes that we've set are appropriate. So, like I think as an example, the parking on broken yellow lines used to be 10 working days, and we've reduced that because I think if a vehicle's going to be moved off that within a very short amount of time. So that's just an example of what we wanted to go back and look at and just make sure that they're all kind of fit for purpose. And then I guess the final stage, as we mentioned in a previous workshop, is we'd like to make that more transparent. So we'd like the public to know what those internal service level agreements are, so that they know if I ring about X, I expect to have it resolved within a time frame, and then we'll be able to report to how successful we are to meet that time frame. So yeah, I think it's something until recently we've been performing, but not had a level of kind of reporting over.
And I'm sure that they will also lead to a consolidation of the reporting overall.
Yeah, we've got a lot of outdated codes. Yeah, absolutely, consolidation. And then I guess the reporting can, once it's automated, it can provide whatever you want. It can show comparisons to previous years and previous quarters and the like. So we'll get into something that's gives you a bit more confidence in terms of what our collective customer response is across the different areas and different wards. I think there was a interesting one for that quarter. Mercury Bay. I'd have to look to previous ones, but when we came around and spoke with you in the workshops, we had a laugh that Whangata normally dominated the request for service, and as you can see that both Mercury Bay and Thames for that quarter have been higher, and I guess it better reflects kind of population spreads and the like.
A general observation, I mentioned this earlier when we talked about some of the crime stats that came out from the Whangamata request for the alcohol ban. I also see the one that's here in regard to the regulatory and nuisance complaints and the dominance of Thames within those stats as well. It sort of all leads to painting a very clear picture that there's some particular challenges within the Thames area. And I just restate, my view that I think it would be very helpful at some stage to have some time as a council to burrow in on a few of those things, not necessarily trying to step into the space of social engineering or changes, but really understanding the council's role in some of these things and the impact that it has on us, which is obviously pretty significant when you start looking at some of this information that's coming through. What are the drivers? What are we perhaps doing that could help manage some of those numbers down a little bit, or work with some other agencies where that could be focused? I don't know. That was a question, sort of.
Well, yeah, if I could comment, I think that's absolutely valid. And if we've got data that other people haven't got, and if we harness the power of the elected membership at both the council and the community board to advocate to make these numbers better, that's absolutely within the remit. It doesn't mean we're spending a lot of ratepayer dollars on it, but we're still doing something about it. And you as elected members are using your power to actually create community outcomes. The other thing I'd like to add is how good this exercise has been. Although at times we have torn our hair out a little bit, but it's crossed through our systems, our people, how we perform, and it's kind of reached out into the organisation. So it's actually been quite a useful exercise to take all of council approach as opposed to a departmental approach to things. So it's been probably something we hadn't intended to do, but has had some good results.
Thanks, Aileen. Robin?
Sorry, just a bit cheeky, but it has to be said in terms of what you're describing here in the regulatory nuisance. I would just like it noted for those playing along at home that the Thames has 259 completed complaints versus Mercury Bay at 231, a difference of 28. The next lowest is Whangamata, which is a difference of 120. So it's potentially it's not all Thames is what I'm saying.
We should get a video game and find out, winners and losers. So thank you. I've got that. Thank you. Terry, go ahead.
Yeah, comment. I just think this is a great tool. And we, for years, have been pushing to try and get a system where we can all zone in and put information in, and it's reacted upon and responded on. And this is really growing into be a great tool for the council. So, yeah, great stuff, and can only improve. So well done.
No further questions. I just have one general one. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Thank you, Brian. You can leave. So I just wanted to touch on a few other things. So we do have Stephen Town here to speak to anything you might want to discuss around recovery. I would note that see how we've said here, these city deals have now morphed into regional deals. Well, since this report was written, they've now morphed into city and regional deals. Or was it regional and city deals? So councillors saw the draft over the weekend that was signed off endorsed at the Mayoral Forum yesterday for completion later in the week. Didn't get any feedback from councillors, so we assumed that it was all good to go. So that was discussed at some length yesterday in the Mayoral Forum. And I think Len has a question on Momentum Waikato, so I might just pass to you to ask Stephen around that. But just also to note, this is Stephen's second to last meeting with us. And he assures me that recovery will be complete by the end of March before he departs from us. Did you want to comment on the Momentum matter?
Thanks, Aileen. Mine was just a simple question. You're meeting with community boards and community leaders. Will that presentation come to council at some stage?
Specifically, and this is quite a tricky thing for us to manage around expectations, is that it's Momentum Waikato are actually going to be the presenter. We're effectively the venue host, if you like, but we have a very strong interest in what is Momentum Waikato doing in this patch, and how can we support them to be successful in that. So I would call it a pretty soft launch. We've got the future funds are now established and are ready to go. What we need now is donors who decide they would like to be part of Momentum Waikato's push to grow endowment funding and bequests in the peninsula. And that's kind of the first gentle step to make sure our community board members and the councillors know that this is happening community by community, and that eventually Momentum Waikato will, this is, I guess, the why are we doing this, that they will be over time announcing in their own time and place donations that have been, or pledges or bequests that are starting to flow in for the benefit of the Coromandel sub-region.
Thanks, Stephen.
So I think what Stephen is saying is our job is to AFI and support them and take direction from
definitely.
them, I guess.
So, you know, we've worked quietly in the background to sort of breathe life into Momentum Waikato's thinking around the peninsula. So the fund and the entity has been around for a while, but they don't have anywhere near the profile that a community foundation like Acorn Foundation in Tauranga and Western Bay has. And so they've revisited their strategic objectives. They've shrunk them from 10 to 3, and they are going to focus on looking and being more like an Acorn Foundation, which its principal activity is to create a place where people in the Coromandel can decide to leave a bequest either as a named fund or as a general fund for creating a better community long term.
Can I just ask a question?
Sure.
So Trust, what is it going to be, like you say, you talk about the Coromandel. So Trust Waikato sits out there, doesn't it? Is it more focused over that way, or the Momentum's going to be more this way? Is there sort of territories being built here?
They kind of coexist because they're different and their origins are different. What you'll see on the Coromandel is we've created the opportunity for people to make bequests and endowments into a fund which is focused on their community,
right?
Or they have the choice of making a bequest to the peninsula-wide future fund, so that we have effectively we've got 6 funds established, and there's 5 of them reflect the traditional communities of the Coromandel.
Right.
And then there's one for the whole of the Coromandel where it gives people the choice of, I'd like my my bequest to be associated with this community for these reasons, or I'm actually happy that it goes peninsula wide.
Okay, thank you. That's interesting. Really interesting.
Stephen, if there's comms around that, it'll be driven by momentum. Is that how it works?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, they've made it pretty clear, and hope nobody would be offended by this, is trying to make sure that it's an apolitical activity, because this goes on forever. So we obviously, our advice is let's make sure Momentum Waikato get to lead, because it's their initiative, but we're quietly in the background saying we're here to help you be successful. And we can do that by connecting you with people that we know live and work and play in this sub-region and want to be part of that going forward.
Thank you, Stephen. Great idea, and I'm really keen to see this succeed over the long term. So awesome. Peter, you had a question?
Thanks. Is there a couple of questions there? Firstly, is there what is the level of the what level does the fund need to be for it to be useful or meaningful? And secondly, do Momentum Waikato have any, based on their past experience, any estimation of how long it's going to take to reach a meaningful level?
Thanks, Councillor. So the first one is each of the funds must get to a minimum of 50,000 before there's any distribution from that fund, and that Momentum Waikato apply that right across the board to all of the funds that they're administering. So there's a you're not going to see people applying for funding when there's only $2,000 in the pot. It's got to get to 50. They're all like that. They're all of the deeds of gift are worded exactly the same, so that there's no surprises for anybody. The second question about how long might it take to get to a certain place, who knows? It could be a week, it could be a year. It's hard to say. Momentum Waikato are looking to appoint fund ambassadors. Again, this is what they do around the rest of the region. And those are people who have already perhaps given a bequest and want to tell people about it, or be that independent face to the community who can talk about this without anyone suspecting that there's an ulterior motive to what they're doing. So they're kind of people with high integrity who want to be part of that storytelling about creating better communities long term.
Thank you, Stephen. Councillors, any other questions of Stephen or?
If I could move on to the roading. Just wanted to note that we are having quite a lot of activity and concern around speed limits, and you'll see there we're noting that we're going to have a workshop with councillors to give you the facts. We've got a specialist coming in to talk you through that, and then decisions can follow thereafter about what actions we may want to take as an advocacy or as in practical actions. Also, just wanted to note we're heading into quite a few tenders, and we're in quite a few tender processes at the moment. So councillors might remember, it'd be some time ago now, that we started a Section 17A review on roading. So the outcomes of that review are now in action. So we are re-tendering our professional services. So that's mid-tender at the moment. Currently we have Pinnacles providing that to us. And you can see we have starting on the re-tendering of the maintenance, operations and maintenance contract, which is Ventia. So I guess I have another little piece of news in that we have Ed sitting in the chambers with us. Ed has resigned to take up a role in Far North. So this will actually be your last meeting with us. Yeah. Ed has a item later in the agenda, so you might want to think about what comments we might want to make at that stage. Far north. So just sticking with that tender theme, again, the Three Waters operations and maintenance contract was released to the market last month. Yep. So again, we're in contract processes are sort of sensitive times where we need to be careful about, accepting the free pen from the would-be contractor and so on and so on. So all of these contract processes will have some checks and balances in place around making sure fairness and so on in the process. And Mo has already spoken to the tenders for the Whitianga RTS, so some good news. I'm not sure how much we're allowed to say, but we got a good number of tenders, I think, is what we can say. And other than that, just if the agenda close for the next month's agenda is this week. So we're just planning to bring an exceptions only report in terms of the CE report in March, because, well, you're hearing everything today and there won't be much more by tomorrow when the agenda closes. So finished now.
Thanks, Aileen. Thank you. Any further questions of Aileen? We've got John Grant on any of those topics that she's covered. Go ahead, John, please.
It's probably not on the topics covered is the question. So if I can digress slightly, I'm just interested in the Thames Shoreline Management Group. Haven't seen anything reported. I just was interested in the formation of the group. Are they a council working group?
There's a meeting tomorrow and an agenda out, which you should have received notification of as a councillor. Have you not got that?
I don't recall seeing it, but I'm not saying I haven't.
We can get that to you. It's not a problem.
No, I don't.
Oh, I don't know why that would have happened.
The question that I had was what is the group? How is it formed? Does it report into council, or is it just a staff working group?
It's a joint governance group and it reports into council, as I understand it, Harry. Is it technically a joint committee?
Through the chair, it's not a committee of council. So I guess you would technically call it a working group.
A working group,
Yeah.
okay. Well, that has elected members on it from council and Waikato Regional Council and community.
Yes.
And it reports into council.
So were the people that are the elected members on that, were they nominated through council, or were they just appointed locally?
I believe so. I would need to check.
I think the appointment sat with the mayor.
I would have to get back to you on that.
Yeah.
Okay, I just raised that as a point of clarification because to me, it just doesn't feel like the mechanism is right in regard to where they sit and whether they were appointed by council and whether it is actually in the reporting back into council so we have an observation of what is taking place as well.
Yes, you're correct. We should be reporting that back into council via the minutes of the meeting. We'll follow that up and get a response back to you on it. And it might be that you might want to make recommendations at some stage for an incoming council to set that up however you think it should be set up.
I don't know the answer to it. I was on that committee from the get-go, but going back 2 years, I can't remember how it was formed. I remember being told one day, here's the working group, you are chairing it, and this is the makeup of it, and here's your agenda. And there's some good work being done in there, but it should be reported back to council, definitely. Yeah.
Through the chair, I do believe that a report did come to council. I just need to try and remember when that happened.
Thanks, Ari.
Amon would probably be the best person.
So we can come back to yourself and councillors, and you should have that agenda, and we can get that to you straight away. Thank you, John.
I think it should be in resolve, shouldn't it?
Yes, but I think there's also another platform that is used for that working group to be able to view the agenda. Because there's externals.
It's been emailed
yes.
directly to members, but it's also on resolve.
Thanks, Roland. Okay. Right. That, unless there's anything, oh, Martin, sorry, carry on. No, there's no other ones on.
Thank you. So in the communications campaign towards the end of your report, it talks about local elections publicity and awareness campaign beginning. Am I right in thinking that we have certain restrictions about what we can, how we can be talking about that as council, how we can be talking about the local elections, particularly with regard to the Mayoral ward councillor seat?
Yes, that's correct. So the legislation requires the chief executive and the organisation to promote voter turnout and ensure that people are informed and understand and so on. There's been quite a big debate amongst councils around what's our role in terms of the Māori ward, and because there's going to be a referendum on that. The legal advice that came back, I think it was through Taituara who got advice on behalf of the practitioners. The legal advice was along the lines of you can promote voter turnout, but you draw the line at promoting how somebody should vote, whether they should vote in favour or against it. To go too far down that track, or to even go down that track, potentially puts us in breach of the Electoral Act in terms of not being kind of neutral in pushing a particular outcome on it, despite the fact that council has voted to put one in place.
So, sorry, if I can ask a follow up. So as elected members, we would be able to not advise people to go into the Maori role, but to be able to say to them, if you want to be able to vote for a Maori ward councillor, you would have to go on the Maori role, but we couldn't say, hey, go on the Maori role. Is that what you're saying, or is it a little bit more nuance?
We can provide help. We can promote voting, so elected members can promote voting. That's probably the extent of it. So you wouldn't be able to really push them into a direction, but you can certainly encourage it, voting and enrolment.
Okay, thank you.
And just while we're on the comms campaign, there's one missing. This is how fast things move. The rates review is missing off that. So that's an additional comms campaign that we haven't quite worked out what it looks like yet, but is something we're going to have to do as well.
Thanks, Aileen. Deli had a question.
Martin raises a very good point about the elections coming up this year, and I'm just wondering, not wanting to create more work for the governance team, but whether or not the community board members, as well as councillors, as well as mayor, will get a briefing at some point on distinguishing your role. What am I looking for? Being in your role as a current elected member and not electioneering at the same time. So we've had an instance already in Mercury Bay where I've spoken to the person and said, look, there are some rules about being incumbent and campaigning. So is that something, Ari, that might be on the radar?
Through the chair, we actually have a report going to leadership team, I think it's Thursday, around the elected members' protocols as well as staff protocols during the local election.
Brilliant. Thank you. I knew you'd be onto it.
There's a fairly simple underlying principle, and that's basically that elected members and staff should not be using council resources where it could be seen to be an electioneering type process. So that underpins it. The protocol has been developed over a number of years, and the councils have similar protocols. And so that will come to you in the March meeting for sign off. It technically commences as of 1 July through till the election, but the protocol that's coming through also says that it actually at no time should anybody be using council resource for something that resembles electioneering, but it does, as of 1 July, a bunch of protections kick in to make sure that's the case. So that'll be with you in March for discussion and sign off.
Awesome. Thank you, Aileen.
Thanks, Aileen. Robin, please.
Just while we've been talking, and I'm just about to send a screenshot to Jenna, I found the agenda for our meeting in March 2023, where the suggested resolutions included appointing members of council to the Thames Resilience and Protection Project. So we have a resolution about it. I'll get Jenna to send it around. I'll ask Jenna very nicely if she's able to send it around.
Thanks, Robin. That's helpful. Much appreciated. That was March 2023. Thank you.
I think it's in the subsequent reporting and information that should flow from that.
Thank you. Okay, if there's nothing further for the Chief Executive, can I get a mover and a seconder, please, to receive the Chief Executive report? Martin, seconder. Peter, all those in favour? Thank you. Much appreciated. I'll now ask for a mover and a seconder to move into public excluded, please. Oh, sorry, it's just to receive the Mayoral report. I'll move from the chair. I'll take it as read. Any questions? All those in favour? Thank you, team. Thanks for the reminder, Ari. Right, mover and a seconder. John moving. Rebecca seconding. All those in favour? Thank you. We'll just take a few minutes to get ourselves set up for public excluded. Richard, sorry, mate. This is the part where we kick you out. But it's lunchtime anyway. Go and get yourself something to eat.